It's 9:38 on a Saturday night in Nashville, and a phone is ringing in Nijaya Jackson's apartment. She almost doesn't pick up. Then she does. It's her best friend since they were 6 years old, but something in the way she's breathing is wrong. "I knew my drink tasted funny." Nijaya sits up. She asks what's going on. The reply comes slower this time, like it costs something to say it. "You did this because you didn't want the baby." She doesn't say a name, just an accusation, aimed at someone Nijaya can't see, over a phone line that's starting to break apart. Nijaya asks her to stay on the line, asks her to say it again, asks her what she means. She never gets a clear answer.
To her, she was not necessarily responding back to me to say, you did this to me. You put something in my drink. I knew my drink tasted funny, and I was like, Jade. She stopped responding.
Welcome to Lethal Obsession. Today's case took years to reach a verdict, and we're going to walk through exactly how it got there. Let's get into it. At 9:38 p.m., a 911 call comes in from a Nashville apartment. The caller tells the dispatcher his girlfriend may be having an allergic reaction. Asked what she's allergic to, he isn't sure.
Right now? Yeah. And do you think she's having an allergic reaction to food? I don't know.
Paramedics arrive minutes later. What they find doesn't match what they were told to expect. Jade is unresponsive, face down on the bed, pink foam around her mouth. No swelling, no hives. None of the signs medics are trained to look for in anaphylaxis. She's transported to Vanderbilt University Medical Center in critical condition. Doctors begin the standard protocol anyway: epinephrine, airway support, monitoring for swelling that should be there and isn't. It doesn't respond the way it's supposed to. Her vitals are collapsing in a pattern that doesn't fit the diagnosis they've been handed. Somewhere outside that room, phones are already ringing. A best friend who spoke to her less than an hour ago is about to find out where she is. Inside the room, doctors keep treating a diagnosis that looks increasingly wrong on a patient who can't tell them what actually happened to her. By sunrise, Jade Benning is still alive. What put her in that bed is still anyone's guess. The woman doctors are fighting for has a name: Jade Tristan Benning, 24 years old, born March 6, 1998, in Little Rock, Arkansas. She built a career in Nashville as a chef, head pastry chef at Mirabella's Table, time at Ernest Bar and Hideaway. Her own catering business, JTB Eatery, built from nothing. 5 months into her pregnancy, she'd already picked a name for her daughter: Ivy Blair. She wasn't due for another 4 months. She had time, she thought, to finish the nursery, to keep building the business. She wasn't planning on doing any of it alone. And on the night everything went wrong, she wasn't. Sergeant James Smith arrives at Vanderbilt after midnight. Before he speaks with anyone else, he interviews Nijaya Jackson. He then finds Taylor sitting alone near the ER entrance, on his phone. Smith brings him into a private room for a recorded interview, body camera running. In that interview, Taylor says he and Jade had recently gotten back together. He denies any significant argument that night. He confirms she became ill during the evening. He says she never directly accused him of anything. Hours earlier, dispatcher Jennifer Barrett had taken his 911 call. Asked what Jade might be allergic to, his answer is recorded as, "I don't think she's allergic to anything. I don't know." Paramedics document her condition on arrival: unresponsive, face down, pink frothy vomit, a Glasgow Coma scale of 3, the lowest score possible, no swelling, no hives, nothing consistent with an allergic reaction. At trial, prosecutors would point to something else from that night: the contrast between the two people in that waiting room. One officer described Taylor as showing little emotion, sitting apart from everyone. Jackson, by the same account, was visibly distraught. What that contrast means is something jurors, 3 years later, would have to decide for themselves. That first night, investigators had a 911 call, a recorded interview, and a patient whose condition matched none of it, nothing more. The rest of the case would take 3 years, and an arrest 1,100 miles away, to come together. On November 4, 2022, Jade tells Taylor the child is his. She isn't asking permission, she's telling him it's happening. According to her mother, Bridget Burks, his answer was direct. If Jade had the baby, he wanted nothing to do with it. Didn't want it carrying his name. Didn't want it to ever know who he was. It wasn't kept private. Michael Johnson, a Titans scouting assistant who worked with Taylor at the time, later testified he'd been plain about it with coworkers too. Not ready yet. Not anytime soon. Johnson also testified she'd never heard Jade's name before the trial, and didn't know Taylor was expecting a child at all. Whatever he was telling people at work, he wasn't telling them who it was about. Jade wasn't waiting for him to change his mind. She told a friend she planned to tell him she wasn't having an abortion, so he could put the idea out of his head for good. She meant it. Neither of them knew yet that 4 months later they'd be back together, or what that would cost. Jade doesn't argue with him. She writes it down instead. You said how you felt, and stated that moving forward you want no part, so I will let it be that, she tells him. I will not involve you at any point. I will love this child unconditionally, with or without you. It reads less like a plea than a door closing on her own terms. She's already stopped drinking, already turned her full attention toward the daughter she's decided to name Ivy Blair, with or without him. For the rest of that fall, that's where things stand. A woman closing a door. A man who told her to close it. It won't stay closed. If you're finding this case as unsettling as we are, hit subscribe before we continue, and drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from. Back to Jade. For nearly 2 months, they don't speak. Jade's told him he doesn't have to be involved. He's taken her at her word, quietly telling his own parents he'd met a woman and might be having a child. Then, on December 31st, 2022, he reaches out. The next day, they meet at a park in Nashville and talk for hours. By the end of it, they've agreed. They'll get to know each other again, so that if the child turns out to be his, they can co-parent. It reads, in the record, as a turning point. But it's a turning point the jury would eventually have to interpret 2 different ways. One version, a man coming to terms with fatherhood, choosing to show up. The other, a man reclaiming access to a woman he'd walked away from 2 months earlier, when saying the right things cost him nothing. Jade doesn't leave a clear answer either way. What's documented is only this. By the end of January, they're seeing each other again. A month later, they're spending an evening together that neither of them walks away from unchanged. February 25th, 2023, a Saturday. The evening comes together that afternoon, mostly on impulse. Jade cooks chicken Alfredo, from scratch, in the apartment she's spent months turning into a home for herself and the daughter she's expecting. Nijaiha Jackson comes by that evening with another friend, casual, centered on the nursery Jade's been slowly building down the hall. Taylor is there too. For Nijaiha, it's the first time meeting him, after months of hearing his name. But the plan, beyond dinner, is to paint. 2 canvases for above the crib. Jade's is full of color, green, yellow, pink, the words love, hope, peace, worked into it. At some point, the conversation turns to the nursery. Asked what his canvas will be, Taylor says, a black hole. No one treats it as anything more than an odd comment at the time. There's pink lemonade that night too. What ends up in it, and how it got there, is the question that will define the next 3 years. By the time the canvases are finished, it's just the 2 of them left in the apartment. Within the hour, Jade calls Nijaiha. She'll ask her the same question, over and over. What did you put in my drink? The 911 call is time-stamped at 9:38 p.m. That much is documented. But according to Taylor's own account to Sergeant Smith that night, there was a call before it. He says that when Jade got sick, he called his father first, and it was his father who told him to call 911. This is worth being precise about. It isn't an independently verified phone record. It's Taylor's own statement, describing his own sequence of decisions in the minutes that mattered most. If it happened the way he described it, there's a gap, however short. A window where the first move wasn't toward the woman on the bed, but toward a phone call to a parent. What that gap means, the case would never fully settle. It isn't in a toxicology report or a crime scene photo. It's a claim from the one person in the room who knew exactly what happened and chose, for reasons of his own, to tell it that way. Doctors already know, by this point, that Jade is carrying a girl. Confirmed weeks earlier, at a sonogram appointment Jade attended without Taylor, Ivy. On February 27th, 2 days after the ambulance ride, Ivy's heartbeat stops. Jade doesn't know. By then, she isn't conscious enough to know anything. Her family gathers at her bedside. Her mother, Bridget Burks, her father, Dennis Browning, an aunt, Brandy Moran, whose last text to her had said, "I'll see you on your birthday." Prosecutors would later use 2 words for what happened over those 9 days. She lingered. She languished. There's no gentler way to say it, that her body kept going long after any real hope was gone. And the people who loved her had to sit with that, day after day, unable to do anything but wait. A family friend described it from outside the room. Nobody seemed to be moving fast enough. No answers. A child on life support, and no one could say why. On March 6th, her family makes the decision no family wants to make. It's her 25th birthday. 9 days after a phone call about a drink that tasted funny. 9 days that end with a mother and a daughter gone. In the same hospital, on the same short stretch of calendar. What killed her is still, officially, an open question. That falls to Dr. Aaron Carney, the Davidson County medical examiner. The toxicology results show cocaine in Jade's system, at a level Carney would later testify was more than recreational use could explain. Not a small amount from a social setting. Something else. There's a complication. Jade has no documented history of cocaine use. Nothing in her background suggests a habit. What she has, in her history, is occasional marijuana, sometimes used in edibles. Nothing more. At trial, prosecutors ask Carney whether it's possible to dissolve cocaine into a liquid. She confirms it is. Pressed on exactly how it entered Jade's body that night, Carney is careful. She doesn't know precisely how. She only knows that it did. That distinction is everything. A drug inhaled or injected tells one story. A drug dissolved into something she drank, without her knowledge, tells another one entirely. This is where the case stops being a medical mystery. The question is no longer why her body failed. It's who put that number there. On the 5th day of trial, a rare Saturday session, prosecutors call a witness who reshapes how the jury understands everything that came before her. Her name is Apple Denny. She and Taylor dated on and off back in 2017. On the stand, she describes a conversation from that relationship. Taylor, she says, once discussed ending another woman's pregnancy without her knowledge by putting an abortion pill in her drink. Denny testified she talked him out of it. It's worth being exact about what this is. One woman's account of a private conversation, years before Jade Benning ever met Blaise Taylor, admitted for a specific purpose, to establish a pattern. Testimony, not an independent fact. The defense cross-examined her. But the timing is hard to ignore. Days of testimony had already built a picture of a man who didn't want to be a father. Denny's testimony adds something sharper. Not just a man who didn't want a child, but a man who had allegedly once discussed a specific method for making one disappear, without the mother ever knowing. In closing arguments, prosecutor Jan Norman would return to this moment directly, telling jurors Denny had to talk Taylor out of drugging another woman's drink to end a pregnancy without her knowledge. What the jury did with that testimony, only they can say. What's certain is that after Denny stepped down, the case looked different than it had an hour before. If you've made it this far, you already know this one doesn't let up. Hit subscribe so you don't miss where it goes. And tell us in the comments where you're watching from. For 3 years, Blaise Taylor lives as a free man. He's arrested March 14, 2024, in Utah.
Can I ask your name?
Blaise.
Blaise, I need you to step out of the car for me, okay? Last name?
Taylor.
Cool. Put your hands behind your back for me, okay?
What's wrong?
You've got a warrant out of Tennessee for homicide.
Held at the Cache County Jail before extradition to Nashville. By late April, he's out again. Someone pays roughly $250,000, 10% of a $2.5 million bond, a GPS monitor, and life continues. The trial opens June 23, 2026, at Davidson County Criminal Court. Assistant District Attorney Jan Norman for the state. Defense Attorney Leticia Quinones Hollins for Taylor. Prosecutors are pursuing life without parole. Over 8 days, 2 versions of that night take shape. The defense leans on how the scene was handled after Jade left for the hospital. Grieving friends entered the apartment before investigators could process it. A comforter believed to have her vomit on it is removed before it's documented in place. A detective, under cross-examination, calls it a contaminated scene. A blood sample, the defense notes, isn't turned in for testing until 2 days after Jade is hospitalized. Then there's Dr. Carney's own conclusion. Pressed on the stand, she says she can't determine, to a medical certainty, that Jade died at another person's hands. The manner of death is ruled undetermined. For the defense, that word becomes the center of their closing. If the state's own medical examiner won't call it homicide, how can 12 jurors call it that beyond a reasonable doubt?
I cannot rule this a homicide. And the reason she's going to tell you she cannot rule this a homicide is because of the circumstances surrounding this baby's death.
The prosecution's answer is to widen the lens. The co-worker who says he didn't want to be a father. The mother who says he wanted nothing to do with the child. The ex-girlfriend who says he'd once discussed drugging a woman's drink. The best friend who heard Jade's own voice, naming him, before the line went quiet.
And I answered it and I was like, hello? Just normal. And she immediately starts saying, what did you do? What did you put in my drink? Then I heard her say, Blaise, you're scaring me. And he was like, you're scaring me. And she was like, I know you put something in my drink. She's like, I knew my drink tasted funny. And she was asking him to empty his pockets. And she was like, let me see what's in your pockets. Let me see. And he was like, I don't have anything. So this whole time I'm like, Jade, like trying to get a response from her.
By the end of 8 days, both sides have said everything they intend to say. What's left is 12 people, deciding which version they believe. On July 1, 2026, after closing arguments, the jury begins deliberating just before noon. It doesn't take long. By 2:20 that afternoon, they're back. The foreperson reads it, guilty, on all 4 counts. 2 hours of deliberation, to close a case that took 3 years to reach a jury at all.
The jury find the defendant Blaise Allen Taylor for count 1, guilty of second-degree murder. For count 2, guilty of first-degree premeditated.
Sobs break out on both sides of the courtroom at once. 2 families, hearing the same 4 words land in entirely different ways. Taylor, free on bond for nearly 3 years, is taken into custody immediately. That evening, the jury reconvenes for sentencing. Shortly before 6, they recommend life in prison, with the possibility of parole. Under Tennessee law, that means 51 years before he's even eligible to ask. Outside the courthouse, Jade's father, Dennis Browning, tells reporters he's glad it's over. Her mother, Bridget Burks, had hoped for life without parole, but after 3 years, she says she can finally feel some relief. Taylor's attorney reads a statement on his behalf. He maintains his innocence. They plan to appeal. The case isn't fully closed. One count, second-degree murder, still needs its own sentencing. Set for September 9, 2026, when a judge will also decide whether Taylor's sentences run concurrently or consecutively. What's certain, for now, is this. It took 3 years of investigation, 8 days of testimony, and 2 hours of deliberation for 12 strangers to decide who they believed. Somewhere in a courthouse hallway that afternoon, a phone call from 3 years earlier finally has an answer. Not from the jury, from the woman who asked the question first and never got to hear it. I knew my drink tasted funny. She was right.